In the hushed stillness of the San Francisco federal courthouse, tension hung thick in the air as all eyes turned toward the two opposing sides. On one side stood Elon Musk, the founder of the groundbreaking tech company Novapulse, representing himself in court, a decision that left many skeptical. On the other was Apex Dynamics, a colossal energy corporation led by the arrogant CEO, James Carver. This lawsuit wasn't just a clash between two companies. It was a battle that would shape how America's tech industry deals with corporate espionage. Apex stood accused of stealing Novapulse's advanced battery technology, not merely for profit, but to cement a monopoly over the renewable energy market. What gripped the nation's attention was Musk's bold demand, not only to invalidate Apex's fraudulent patent, but to impose a 5-year ban preventing them from developing similar tech, a punishment meant to deter anyone daring to pilfer innovation. As Judge Margaret Holloway banged her gavel to open the trial, no one could have predicted that the story about to unfold would become iconic, a clash where Musk's brilliant intellect faced off against his rival's hubris, leaving an indelible mark on the history of American technology. If you're as captivated by this epic showdown as I am, don't forget to like this story and subscribe to the channel for more tales of ingenuity and justice. The morning at the San Francisco federal courthouse began with an unusual stillness, as if the entire city were holding its breath in anticipation of something monumental. Courtroom number 7, with its polished oak walls and towering frosted glass windows, had long been a stage for cases that reshaped American history. Today, it transformed once again into the arena for a showdown predicted to shake the tech industry to its core. The early sunlight slipped through the windows, casting soft beams across rows of packed seats. Reporters clutching recorders and notepads, lawyers in expensive suits, tech engineers with eyes full of curiosity and apprehension, and ordinary spectators drawn to witness an unrelenting battle. Whispers rippled through the room like waves, but they fell silent the moment the main doors swung open. Elon Musk stepped in, his demeanor calm yet resolute. He wore a simple black shirt, no suit, no tie, a stark contrast to the courtroom's formality. Before him sat a small table, topped with a thick stack of neatly arranged documents, each page like a bullet in his arsenal. His sharp eyes scanned the room, pausing briefly on the opposite side where James Carver, CEO of Apex Dynamics, sat surrounded by a formidable team of lawyers. Carver, a man in his 50s with meticulously groomed salt and pepper hair and a pricey gray suit, looked every bit the embodiment of corporate power. He flashed a faint smile, but it couldn't mask the tension in his gaze. Behind him, Apex's legal team murmured among themselves, exchanging quick nods and steely glances that suggested they were well prepared, or at least they believed they were. From behind the bench, Judge Margaret Holloway emerged, her black robe billowing slightly as she took her seat. A middle-aged woman with silver hair tied back neatly in a stern, steel-like gaze, she carried a reputation in legal circles not just for fairness, but for her ability to see through the most intricate courtroom tactics. Her gavel struck with a crisp, decisive thud, cutting through the room's every sound. "Court is now in session," she declared, her steady voice echoing through the space. "Today we will hear the case of Novapulse, represented by Mr. Elon Musk, versus Apex Dynamics, concerning allegations of corporate espionage and patent infringement. Mr. Musk, please present your opening statement." Musk rose without haste. Unlike most lawyers, he carried no pre-written speech or carefully rehearsed script. Instead, he looked directly at Judge Holloway, hands clasped behind his back, and spoke in a measured tone heavy with conviction. "Your Honor, I'm not here to play legal games or to show off. I'm here for a simple principle. Innovation is the backbone of progress, and no one has the right to steal it. Novapulse has spent years, thousands of hours, hundreds of failures, to develop an advanced battery technology that could change how we harness renewable energy. Apex Dynamics didn't create that technology. They took it from us, filed a patent based on deception, and now they want to use it to monopolize the market. I'm asking for 2 things. First, strike down their fraudulent patent. Second, impose a 5-year ban to stop them from profiting off this wrongdoing. Justice isn't just about fixing a mistake, it's about ensuring it doesn't happen again. Murmurs spread through the courtroom like a gentle ripple. Some shook their heads, deeming Musk's demands too harsh, practically a knockout blow to Apex. Others nodded, impressed by his boldness and clarity. Across the room, James Carver smirked, whispering something to his lead counsel, Robert Grayson. Grayson, a tall, lean man with gold-rimmed glasses and a razor-sharp gaze, was a veteran attorney known for turning hopeless cases around. He stood, his voice smooth as a seasoned stage actor. Your Honor, these accusations are baseless. Apex Dynamics developed its technology legally through internal research and the innovation of our exceptional engineering team. Mr. Musk is merely trying to smear our reputation to eliminate a strong competitor. We request this case be dismissed immediately. Judge Holloway raised an eyebrow, her gaze shifting from Grayson to Musk. Mr. Musk, do you have evidence to support your claims? She asked, her tone devoid of emotion but brimming with authority. Musk nodded, stepping to the evidence table with the confidence of someone who'd prepared every detail. He picked up a thick stack of documents and placed it before the judge with a soft thud. This is the first piece of evidence, he said, a series of internal Apex Dynamics emails leaked by an employee who couldn't stomach their lies. These emails show James Carver directly ordered his engineers to reverse engineer our technology after a NovaPulse prototype went missing at a tech conference in Las Vegas last year. They didn't just steal, they planned to make it theirs step by step. Carver clenched his fists under the table, the faint smile vanishing from his lips as if swept away by a gust. Grayson sprang up, his voice rising in protest. Your Honor, these emails could be fabricated. We demand their authenticity be verified before they're admitted as evidence. This is a cheap trick. But Musk had anticipated this. He pulled a small, glossy black USB from his pocket and plugged it into the courtroom's projector. The large screen behind Judge Holloway lit up, displaying a string of terse, chilling messages from Carver to his team. Got the prototype, one read. Analyze it now. I wanted ours by year's end. The next was even bolder. Leave no trace. If Musk finds out, we'll bury him in lawsuits. The courtroom's murmurs erupted into a clamor. Some reporters scribbled furiously, while others whispered in disbelief at what they'd just seen. Judge Holloway banged her gavel 3 times, each strike ringing like a hammer on an anvil. Order! She barked, her piercing gaze sweeping the room. Silence returned, and she turned to Musk. Proceed, she said. Musk nodded, moving to the witness stand and calling his first witness. Emily Carter, an engineer who'd worked at NovaPulse before being recruited by Apex. Emily, a woman in her 30s with neatly tied brown hair and steady blue eyes, stepped up, her hands clasped tightly to steady her nerves. I was hired by Apex right after the Las Vegas conference, she began, her voice trembling slightly but clear. They put me on a secret project, asking me to recreate NovaPulse's battery tech using data from the stolen prototype. I asked how they got it, but they just said, don't worry about it. When I refused to help, Carver met with me himself. He said if I didn't cooperate, I'd lose my job, and maybe worse. Grayson leapt up like he'd been shocked. This testimony is unreliable. Ms. Carter could be seeking revenge for being fired. We demand it be stricken. But Musk didn't flinch. He presented another stack of documents, handwritten notes from James Carver himself, recovered from an Apex office trash bin by a conscientious janitor. The crumpled pages, scrawled in black ink, outlined every step. Infiltrating NovaPulse's security to snag data, drafting a fake patent application based on the stolen tech. One line stood out, chilling in its arrogance. Musk will never prove it. He's too busy chasing dreams to notice us. This isn't revenge, Musk said, his voice dropping low, his eyes locking onto Carver. This is the truth, and I have more proof to back it up. Carver bowed his head, hands trembling beneath the table. Apex's legal team began muttering among themselves, their shaken heads and frantic glances revealing they hadn't expected Musk to go this far. But the decisive moment, the one that would rock the courtroom, was still to come. As the trial stretched into its 4th hour, the sunlight outside shifted to a pale orange, bathing the room in an eerie glow. Musk rose again, his voice calm but laced with the drama of someone about to deliver a final blow. Your Honor, I request to call an additional witness, one not on the original list. I only received his information this morning, and I believe his testimony will seal this case. Judge Holloway frowned, clearly displeased by the sudden change. Mr. Musk, this is highly irregular. Can you explain? Musk nodded. He's a critical piece, Your Honor. This witness has direct evidence from inside Apex Dynamics, evidence no one can refute. After a brief silence, Holloway nodded. Very well. Call your witness. The courtroom doors swung open, and a young man stepped in. Dressed in a faded gray hoodie and thick glasses, he looked more like he'd wandered out of a lab than a courtroom. He introduced himself as Daniel Brooks, James Carver's personal assistant at Apex Dynamics for the past 2 years. Whispers erupted again, and Carver's head snapped up, his face paling as if he'd seen a ghost from his past. I couldn't keep living with the guilt, Daniel said, his voice quivering but resolute. I was there when they planned to steal Nova Pulse's tech. I heard everything, and I recorded a secret meeting between Mr. Carver and Apex's leadership. They knew it was wrong, but they pressed on. For money, for power, because they thought no one could stop them. Musk approached, taking a small recorder from Daniel and pressing play. Carver's deep voice boomed from the speaker, unmistakable and damning. Musk thinks he's the smartest guy here, but we'll take his tech and make it ours. I don't care what it takes. Hire hackers, bribe staff, destroy the prototype. Just get it done before he reacts. A long pause followed, then Carver's cold, smug laugh rang out. He'll never know what we did until it's too late. We'll be kings of renewable energy, and Nova Pulse will be a memory. The courtroom fell silent. Some reporters stopped writing, staring wide-eyed in disbelief. Others scribbled frantically, hands shaking on their pads. Judge Holloway pounded her gavel repeatedly, but the noise persisted, Carver's shout cutting through the din. You traitor! You were fired for incompetence, and now you're making this up to ruin me. But Daniel stood firm. He pulled another USB from his pocket and handed it to Musk. This is data I copied from Apex's servers, he said. They analyzed Nova Pulse's tech, documented every step, and hid its origins. It's all here. Grayson shot up, his voice cracking with panic. This is illegal evidence. We demand it be thrown out. This witness can't be trusted. But Judge Holloway shook her head, her gaze icy. I'll review the admissibility of these materials during the recess, she said. For now, they're accepted for consideration. Mr. Musk, anything else? Musk nodded, stepping back to the evidence table. He set down Daniel's USB, then turned to face Carver directly. This is everything I need to prove Apex Dynamics didn't just steal our technology. They deliberately deceived this court and the public. They didn't just want money, they wanted power to monopolize the renewable energy market by crushing us. Justice isn't just about voiding their patent. It's about ensuring they can't keep doing this, not just to Nova Pulse, but to anyone else in the future. As Musk sat down, his eyes flicked to Carver once more. The once arrogant man now shrank in his seat, hands gripping the chair's arms as if it were the only thing holding him upright. Apex's lawyers whispered among themselves, their faces pale, clearly out of moves. But the trial wasn't over. Judge Holloway rose, her voice ringing like a final warning. The court will recess to review all evidence presented. We'll reconvene in 1 hour for the ruling. I advise both sides to prepare for the outcome. This case doesn't just affect these two companies. It impacts how we safeguard innovation going forward. The gavel struck, and the room exploded into chaos. Reporters bolted for the doors, racing to file their stories, while spectators buzzed with speculation about which way the verdict would lean. James Carver sat motionless, his vacant stare fixed on the table, as Robert Grayson pulled him aside, whispering with a desperate edge. On the other side, Musk stood, quietly gathering his papers, a faint smirk tugging at his lips, a discreet sign of someone who knew victory was within reach. Outside, the afternoon sun faded over San Francisco streets, but inside, the fire of the fight still blazed. Apex Dynamics had been backed into a corner, their once perfect plan crumbling before their eyes. Musk, with meticulous preparation and razor-sharp strategy, had turned initial doubts about his self-representation into an unstoppable performance. Now everything hinged on Judge Holloway's ruling, a decision that wouldn't just settle Apex's fate, but send a resounding message to the tech world. Innovation can't be stolen without a price. When Judge Margaret Holloway's gavel struck to end the recess, courtroom number 7 at the San Francisco Federal Courthouse plunged into a heavy, almost suffocating silence. Outside, the afternoon sun waned, its final orange streak slipping through the towering frosted glass windows, casting an odd hue across the polished wooden floor, a blend of hope's light and uncertainty's shadow. The seats remained packed, but the atmosphere had shifted dramatically since the morning. Initial curiosity had given way to peak tension, as if the entire room teetered on the edge of an event that would change everything. Reporters gripped their pens and recorders, hands trembling with excitement, poised to capture every word of the impending verdict. Spectators in the gallery whispered to one another, their voices so hushed they were barely audible, speculating whether Apex dynamics could turn the tide, though everyone knew that chance was razor-thin after the morning's revelations. At the plaintiff's table, Elon Musk sat still, hands clasped on the desk, his piercing gaze fixed on the opposite side. He wore his plain black shirt, no suit, no tie, a stark contrast to the courtroom's formality, yet exuding an unassuming confidence. Before him lay a neatly organized stack of documents, now reduced to a few stray sheets, the remnants of a strategy executed with precision. Musk looked like a warrior fresh from a major battle, waiting only to see how his foe would fall. His eyes betrayed no flicker of doubt, though a close observer might notice a slight squint at the corners, a subtle sign he was suppressing a powerful emotion, perhaps a mix of satisfaction and resolve. Across the room at the defendant's table, James Carver slumped, his trembling hands hidden beneath an expensive gray suit, his face ashen as if half his soul had fled. Once the picture of arrogance and power, salt and pepper hair impeccably groomed, a tailored suit flawless, and a faint smile ever present as a taunt. That image was gone. Now panic etched his features, impossible to conceal. His eyes darted wildly from his legal team to the gallery and back to his own hands as if searching for an invisible escape. Behind him, Apex Dynamics lawyers, led by Robert Grayson, murmured in a frenzy. Grayson, a tall, wiry man with gold-rimmed glasses and a gaze sharp as a blade, had a reputation for salvaging lost causes. But today, sweat drenched his face, his hands clenched the chair's arms, and his whispers to his colleagues lacked their usual assurance. They sounded more like the pleas of men who knew defeat was closing in. The door behind the bench swung open, and Judge Margaret Holloway entered, her demeanor as stern as a living statue of justice. Her black robe fluttered lightly as she took her seat, her keen eyes sweeping the room before settling on the two sides. A middle-aged woman with silver hair tied back neatly, her expressionless face radiated an authority no one could defy. Her renown in legal circles stemmed not just from her fairness, but from her knack for piercing through complex courtroom ploys, a skill she'd wielded fully today to dissect the mountain of evidence presented that morning. Her gavel struck again, sharp and cold like a hammer nailing the case's fate. "We will proceed," she announced, her steady voice carrying the weight of an unchallengeable command. After thoroughly reviewing the evidence presented this morning, including Apex Dynamics' internal emails, James Carver's handwritten notes, Emily Carter's testimony, and, notably, Daniel Brooks's recording and server data, the court has reached a decision. I will deliver my ruling now. The courtroom went dead silent. Even the breathing of those closest was nearly inaudible, as if everyone clung to each second before the truth emerged. James Carver lifted his head, his eyes flickering between fragile hope and abject terror. His hands gripped the chair so tightly his knuckles whitened, as if it were the only thing keeping him from collapsing entirely. Robert Grayson clutched his chair's arms, striving for composure, but the sweat rolling down his forehead betrayed him. Apex's legal team whispered among themselves, their shaken heads and frantic glances signaling they had no strategies left. Just the wait for a verdict they knew wouldn't favor them. Musk, in contrast, remained motionless, his face impassive, though a keen eye might catch the faint upward twitch of his lips, a discreet smile from someone certain of victory. Judge Holloway cleared her throat, her voice ringing clear in the stillness, each word a hammer blow to Apex Dynamics' fate. The court has considered all evidence presented in this case, she began, her gaze sweeping the room to ensure every ear was attuned. Emily Carter's testimony, as an engineer once at Novapulse and later lured by Apex, is corroborated by internal emails and James Carver's handwritten notes. These documents prove beyond doubt that Apex Dynamics deliberately stole Novapulse's advanced battery technology, a technology Novapulse spent years developing, aiming to revolutionize renewable energy use. The emails reveal Mr. Carver personally ordered his engineering team to reverse engineer a Novapulse prototype stolen from a Las Vegas tech conference last year. His notes, recovered from an Apex office trash bin, detail this scheme, from breaching Novapulse's security for data to drafting a fraudulent patent application based on the stolen tech. She paused briefly, her eyes sliding to Carver, who now stared down, unable to meet her gaze. His hands shook more violently, and a faint groan escaped his throat. A weak sound, but loud enough for nearby spectators to catch. Judge Holloway either didn't notice or chose to ignore it. But what particularly struck this court, she continued, her tone hardening, is the recording from Daniel Brooks, Mr. Carver's former personal assistant. This recording not only confirms corporate espionage, but exposes the arrogance and disregard for the law within Apex's leadership. In it, Mr. Carver explicitly states his intent. Musk thinks he's the smartest guy here, but we'll take his tech and make it ours. I don't care what it takes, just get it done before he reacts. His laughter on that tape is the clearest evidence of his hubris, a hubris that will cost him dearly today. A collective gasp rose from the gallery, but Holloway wasn't finished. She placed a hand on the documents before her, her voice taking on an icy edge, as if pronouncing a death sentence on Apex Dynamics. Therefore, she declared, Apex Dynamics patent number 209813-KL4 is hereby invalidated, effective immediately. This isn't just about correcting a wrong. It's a statement that patents built on deceit will not stand in our legal system. Murmurs spread through the courtroom, but she raised a hand for silence, and the room quickly hushed. Furthermore, she pressed on, under Section 52C of the U.S. Technological Innovation Protection Act, Apex Dynamics is barred from developing, manufacturing, or marketing any similar renewable energy battery technology for 5 years starting today. This ban isn't merely punishment, it's a warning. Such actions will not be tolerated in our tech industry, where innovation drives progress. The courtroom erupted like a tidal wave. Some reporters shouted, jostling to jot down the ruling, while spectators leapt up, buzzing with excitement. 5 years, one whispered, voice thick with shock. They're done for, another replied, barely hiding their glee. But Judge Holloway hadn't concluded. She banged her gavel repeatedly, her face stone hard, her sharp eyes scanning the room to restore order. Silence, she barked, and the noise subsided, though the air remained taut as a bowstring. Additionally, she said, her voice now colder than ever, Apex Dynamics will pay Novapulse $25 million in damages for willful patent infringement, plus all legal costs tied to this case. This sum reflects the harm inflicted on Novapulse, not just financially, but in time, effort, and trust in our system of protecting innovation. It's also a deterrent, ensuring no other company dares repeat this behavior. James Carver shot up from his chair as if electrified, slamming his hands on the table with a resounding boom that echoed through the room. This is a conspiracy, he roared, his voice quaking and breaking with panic, his face flushed with rage and fear. Musk bought off everyone in this room. You can't do this to me, to my company. We're the future of renewable energy. Musk's just a delusional dreamer. He doesn't deserve to win. His shouts reverberated, stunning spectators and reporters alike. Some gaped, incredulous that the once proud Carver had unraveled so completely, while others snickered, relishing his public downfall. Robert Grayson sprang up, grabbing Carver's shoulder to pull him down, but Carver yanked free, his wild eyes turning to Judge Holloway. You don't get it, he bellowed, his voice cracking like he might sob. We've sunk billions into this. We've got shareholders, employees, Family's counting on us. You're ruining everything just for a guy like Musk? He's a lunatic. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. He jabbed a trembling finger at Musk, his hands shaking so badly it seemed ready to snap, his face contorted with fury and despair. He set this all up. That recording's fake. I didn't say those things. I didn't order anyone to do anything. The courtroom buzz erupted again, this time tinged with shock and mockery. Some spectators laughed outright, unable to believe Carver was digging his own grave deeper. "He's toast," one whispered to their neighbor. "Look at him, confessing right in court." Another shot back, voice dripping with sarcasm. Judge Holloway hammered her gavel, her face rigid as stone, her gaze cutting like a blade. "Mr. Carver," she snapped, her voice thundering over the crowd, "I advise you to sit down and shut up right now. Your behavior is making this worse, and I won't hesitate to have you removed if you keep disrupting. Do you understand?" Grayson finally dragged Carver back into his seat, but he still heaved for breath, hands gripping the chair so hard his knuckles blanched. Sweat streamed down his forehead, soaking his shirt collar, and his eyes darted frantically, from the judge to his lawyers, then back to Musk. Across the room, Musk merely tilted his head, his gaze cool and unflinching. As if he'd foreseen this meltdown and found it unsurprising. He said nothing, showed no reaction, just sat there with a chilling calm, like a chess player who'd placed his queen for checkmate, knowing his opponent had no moves left. Wow, can you believe the intensity of this courtroom drama? If you're hooked on this clash of titans and want more epic stories like this, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to stay in the loop for what's next, Judge Holloway resumed, her voice reverting to a fearsome calm, as if Carver's outburst were a mere breeze not worth her notice. "Finally," she said, "the court finds sufficient evidence that Apex Dynamics' actions violate not just civil law, but show signs of criminal conduct. Brooks's recording, paired with Apex's server data, reveals a deliberate scheme not only to steal technology, but to conceal it through falsified documents and perjured testimony. Accordingly, I'm referring this matter to the federal prosecutor's office for investigation into charges of industrial espionage and perjury. Mr. Carver, I suggest you and your team prepare for what's ahead. This is no longer just a civil issue." That final statement hit Carver like a sledgehammer. He slumped back in his chair, face ghostly pale, eyes staring blankly into space. A faint groan slipped from his throat, feeble and desperate, like the sound of a wounded animal too weak to fight. Grayson whispered urgently to him, voice rushed and panicked. But Carver didn't respond. He looked like a man who'd lost everything in an instant, stripped of any will to resist or justify. Apex's legal team huddled around him, their faces ashen, their shaken heads and frantic glances showing they had no way to salvage this. A young lawyer with disheveled blonde hair muttered to Grayson, "We've got to appeal. We can't let it end like this." But Grayson just shook his head, his voice a near whisper. "Appeal what? We've got nothing left to fight him with." Gasps and murmurs swept the courtroom, but this time no one dared speak loudly. The verdict wasn't just a win for Musk, it was a flawless knockout against Apex Dynamics, a blow that sent shivers through the tech industry. The 5-year ban didn't just sever Apex's ability to compete in renewable energy, it turned them into a cautionary tale for any company tempted to steal ideas. The $25 million penalty, though steep, was a fraction of the real damage. Apex's reputation lay in ruins, and the specter of criminal charges loomed like a guillotine over James Carver's head. Judge Holloway set down her pen, her gaze sweeping the room once more, before resting on Musk. "Before we adjourn," she said, her tone shifting, not the sternness of a judge now, but the sincerity of a person. "I want to add something. When this case began, I doubted Mr. Musk's ability to represent himself. I thought he couldn't stand against a seasoned legal team like Apex's. I was wrong. Mr. Musk presented this case with astonishing preparation, proving that intelligence, determination, and faith in justice can overcome any obstacle. Even in a courtroom like this." A soft clap broke out from the gallery, swelling into a roaring ovation. Reporters paused their scribbling to join in, and spectators rose, their excitement uncontainable. Musk gave a slight nod. Not a thank you, but a quiet acknowledgement. He didn't stand or wave, just sat there, his eyes scanning the room with the calm of a man who'd fulfilled his mission. Judge Holloway offered a rare, faint smile, the first in the trial, before striking her gavel one last time. "Court is adjourned," she declared. The gavel's thud rang out, and the room exploded into chaos. Reporters surged for the doors like a whirlwind, rushing to file their stories, microphones and cameras clashing in the frenzy. "Musk scores a huge win," one shouted, while another yelled, "Apex Dynamics collapses, 5-year ban." Spectators stood, buzzing with chatter, some laughing heartily, others shaking their heads in disbelief at what they'd witnessed. At the defendant's table, James Carver remained frozen, his face devoid of the arrogance it once held. Robert Grayson and Apex's lawyers clustered around him, whispering in a panic, grasping for ways to mitigate the damage. But everyone knew it was futile. A middle-aged lawyer with short, dyed red hair murmured to Grayson, "Can we negotiate with Musk? Offer more money to lift the ban?" Grayson shook his head, his voice hoarse with exhaustion. "You think Musk would agree? He's not here for money. He's here to destroy us." On the other side, Musk rose, gathering his papers with striking calm. Sarah Bennett, his technical assistant at Novapulse, rushed to his side, her eyes gleaming with excitement. A young woman with blonde hair tied high and a radiant smile, she'd helped Musk analyze the technical data for the case. "We did it, Elon!" she exclaimed, her voice brimming with joy. "You're unbelievable. I've never seen anyone take down a whole legal team single-handedly like that." Musk turned to her, a rare, genuine smile flickering across his face, a spark of warmth in his usually stern eyes. "No, Sarah," he corrected, his tone low but kind. "We're unbelievable. Without your technical support, I couldn't have pulled this off. This is our team's victory, not just mine." Sarah laughed, giving his shoulder a playful tap. But before she could say more, Judge Holloway stepped down from the bench, approaching Musk. The crowd hushed, watching curiously as the air turned solemn. Holloway stopped before him, hands clasped beneath her black robe, her eyes shining with rare respect. "Mr. Musk," she said, her voice low but clear, audible to those nearby, "I'd like a private word." Sarah nodded, stepping away with a discreet smile, leaving Musk and Holloway face to face in the thinning room. "This was a remarkable case," Holloway said, her tone carrying a sincerity she seldom showed in her decades on the bench. "I've presided over hundreds of trials in over 20 years, but I've never seen someone represent themselves this well. You made me rethink my biases, not just about you, but about how justice can be served in cases like this." Musk nodded, devoid of pride, meeting her gaze with mutual respect. "Thank you, Your Honor," he replied. "I just did what was necessary to protect what we've built. Novapulse isn't just a company. It's the dream of hundreds who poured their sweat and tears into it. I couldn't let it be stolen without a fight." Holloway's faint smile softened her usual sternness. "I heard you were nervous that first day," she said, a hint of teasing in her voice. "Was it all an act? That fumbling, unprepared look? Was that your strategy from the start?" Musk chuckled softly, a first for the trial, a small laugh that lit up his face. "Not entirely," he admitted, a touch of self-deprecation in his tone. "I was genuinely nervous. I'd never stood in a courtroom like this before. But yes, looking unprepared was part of the plan. I needed them to underestimate me, needed Carver and his team to think I wasn't a threat. It gave me the edge." She shook her head, clearly impressed, her eyes glinting with a mix of awe and admiration. "Brilliant," she said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "Your strategy wasn't just smart. It was bold to the point of madness. But you proved that sometimes that madness is what it takes to win. Congratulations, Mr. Musk. You earned this victory, not just for Novapulse, but for the principle you defended." She extended her hand and they shook, a brief but meaningful gesture, a bond of respect between two figures, once on opposite sides of justice, now united by a shared pursuit of truth. As Musk turned to leave, a mob of reporters swarmed him at the courtroom exit, microphones and cameras thrusting from every angle like a storm. "Mr. Musk, how does it feel to win?" one shouted, voice electric with excitement. Was your strategy planned from the start? Another pressed, shoving through the crowd. Will you pursue criminal charges against Carver? What do you think of his outburst? Musk raised a hand for quiet, his voice calm but firm, cutting through the clamor. I came here for justice, not revenge, he said, his eyes sweeping across their faces. The ruling speaks for itself, not just for Novapulse, but for anyone who believes innovation is worth protecting. As for Carver, I've got nothing to say. His actions spoke loud enough. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've got work to do. He pushed through the throng with help from courthouse security, heading to a waiting car where Sarah stood with a beaming smile. As they drove away from the San Francisco Federal Courthouse, the sunset bathed the city in a brilliant gold, as if nature itself celebrated their triumph. Sarah turned to Musk, her voice still buzzing with excitement. Did you see Carver's face? She asked, laughing. I thought he was going to cry. Did he really think he'd get away with it? Musk gave a soft chuckle, his gaze drifting out the window at the passing skyscrapers. He didn't think he'd get away, he said, his tone low. He just hoped I wasn't good enough to prove it, but he was wrong. Meanwhile, in the now nearly empty courtroom, James Carver sat alone at the defendant's table, his vacant stare fixed on the window. His legal team had dispersed, leaving him with a crushing silence and inescapable consequences. Robert Grayson was the last to leave, pausing beside Carver to place a hand on his shoulder. We'll figure something out, Grayson said, his voice rough with fatigue. We can appeal or negotiate with the prosecutors. It's not over yet. But Carver didn't reply. He just sat there, hands limp at his sides, his face twisted like a man who'd lost everything: reputation, power, and future. Out on San Francisco streets, news of the verdict spread like wildfire. Giant screens at Union Square flashed. Elon Musk scores major, win against Apex Dynamics, 5-year ban, and $25 million in damages. Pedestrians stopped, pointing and chattering, some clapping, others shaking their heads in disbelief. In Apex Dynamics offices nearby, employees whispered among themselves, fear creeping into their voices about what lay ahead. What happens to us now? One asked, trembling. The company might go under, another replied, face pale. Today's ruling wasn't just a legal loss. It was the beginning of the end for an empire that once thought itself untouchable, now reduced to a shadow of its former self. In the car, Sarah turned to Musk again, her tone softening with curiosity. So what's next? She asked. Musk didn't answer right away. He stared out the window, his gaze distant, as if envisioning bigger plans, grander dreams. We get back to work, he finally said, his voice steady as steel. We keep building things that change the world. This isn't the end. It's just the start. As the car merged into the city's traffic, the sunset faded, giving way to darkness. But for Musk and Novapulse, the light of victory burned brighter than ever. As the last rays of sunset faded over San Francisco streets, leaving the sky a deep black speckled with city lights, the story of Elon Musk's triumph at the San Francisco Federal Courthouse was far from over. Judge Margaret Holloway's verdict wasn't just the end of a trial, it was a stone tossed into the still waters of the tech industry, sending ripples across America and beyond. While Musk and Sarah Bennett drove away from the courthouse, carrying the quiet joy of victory, a gloom settled over Apex Dynamics headquarters on the other side of the city, as if the building itself groaned under the weight of defeat. James Carver, once a symbol of power and ambition, was now a mere shadow of his former self, facing consequences that not only shattered his career, but demolished the empire he'd built. 2 days after the ruling, the executive offices of Apex Dynamics in San Francisco's financial district stood nearly empty. The gleaming glass walls, once reflecting the city's vibrant light, were now dull mirrors coated in dust and silence. Low-level employees whispered in shadowed corners, their voices trembling with dread about what lay ahead. Are we going to lose our jobs? One asked, hands clutching a cold coffee mug. I heard they're slashing the entire renewable energy division, another replied, face pale as if they'd just received dire news. Up on the top floor, where the leadership once gathered to plot bold strategies, the air was even heavier. James Carver sat alone in the vast boardroom, his vacant stare fixed on the window, where San Francisco's skyscrapers rose like mountains defying him. Before him sat a small cardboard box holding his last personal items, a family photo frame, a golf trophy from a charity tournament, and a yellowed business card, fragments of a once proud life. The boardroom door swung open, and Robert Grayson stepped in, his face weary, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. He wore a rumpled gray suit, a far cry from his usual polish. "James," Grayson said, his voice hoarse with strain, "the board just met. They want you to resign, effective immediately." Carver didn't look up, just twitched his lips into a bitter half-smile. "Resign?" he muttered, so quiet it was almost inaudible. "They think I've got any other choice? After that 5-year ban, there's nothing left to resign from." Grayson sat across from Carver, hands clasped on the table, striving for calm, though panic clearly gnawed at him. "We can still appeal," he said, his voice tinged with fragile hope. "We could argue the ban's too harsh, that it exceeds Holloway's authority, or negotiate with the U.S. Attorney's Office. Pay a fine to dodge criminal charges. There's still a way, James. We're not completely beaten." But Carver shook his head, eyes glued to the window, as if staring at a world that had turned its back on him. "Appeal?" He let out a dry, hollow laugh. "You think Musk will let us off that easy? He's calculated every move. He knows we've got nothing left. No evidence, no witnesses, not even a shred of reputation." Grayson clenched his fists, his voice rising with desperation. "So what are you going to do? Sit here and let it all crumble? We've got thousands of employees, shareholders, partners. They're waiting for us to act." Carver finally looked up, his eyes red-rimmed, whether from anger or suppressed tears unclear. "Act?" he snarled, slamming a hand on the table, rattling the cardboard box. "What do you want me to do when the whole world knows we're thieves? When our stocks tanked 40% in 2 days? When our biggest partners have bailed to avoid the fallout?" "We're done, Robert. I'm done." The boardroom door opened again, this time admitting Ellen Harper, Apex Dynamics CFO. A middle-aged woman with short, dyed red hair and a sharp gaze. She'd been known for steadying the company through its roughest patches. But today her face was ghostly white, her hands gripping a thick stack of papers. "James," she said, her voice shaky yet clinging to professionalism, "I just got the financial report. We've lost our 3 biggest contracts in the last 24 hours. The banks are calling in loans, and if we don't pay within a month, they'll seize assets. The 5-year ban killed our renewable energy division, our main revenue stream. We're staring down bankruptcy." Carver met Harper's eyes, his stare blank as if all life had drained from him. "Bankruptcy?" he echoed, barely above a whisper. "So everything I've built over 20 years, just ashes now?" Harper didn't answer immediately, setting the papers down with trembling hands. "We could try restructuring," she said, her voice carrying a faint thread of hope. "Sell off assets, cut staff, pivot to other sectors. But if you don't step up and reassure the shareholders, they'll pull every dime. We need you, James, whether you like it or not." But Carver stayed silent. He stood walking slowly to the window, gazing down at San Francisco's bustling streets, alive with cars and lights. "Reassure the shareholders?" he said with a dry, mocking laugh. "You think they'll listen to me, Ellen? After the world heard that recording? After Musk turned me into a thief in front of millions? They don't need me. They need a new leader, one who doesn't carry the label idea thief on their back." He turned, his red eyes flaring with a final spark of anger. "I thought I was smarter than him. I thought we could take his tech and no one would know. But I was wrong, and now we're paying for it." Grayson shot to his feet, his voice spiking with fury. "So you're giving up? Letting Musk win completely? We should have competed fair and square from the start. If you hadn't ordered us to reverse engineer that damn prototype, we wouldn't be here." Harper flinched at Grayson's outburst but said nothing, standing there with a sorrowful look. Carver turned back, offering Grayson a bitter smile. "Fair and square?" he repeated, voice dripping with cynicism. "You think we could have beaten Musk that way? He's a genius, a lunatic, but a genius. I thought the only way to win was to play dirty, and I was wrong." The boardroom air grew stifling, as if the walls themselves closed in. Harper finally spoke, her voice soft but firm. If you won't fight anymore, at least resign with dignity. Don't force the board to oust you. That'll only make it worse. Carver didn't reply right away. He returned to the table, picked up the cardboard box, and stared at it for a long moment, as if revisiting his entire life. Fine, he said at last, his voice raspy with exhaustion. I'll resign, but don't expect me to face the public. I've got no face left to show. As Carver left the boardroom, his steps heavy as if bearing the world's weight, Grayson and Harper remained, exchanging silent glances, unsure of the next move. In the hallway, employees gathered, whispering as they watched Carver exit with the box in hand. Is he really gone? One asked, voice quaking. Looks like it, another replied, eyes brimming with worry. This company's finished. The rift within Apex Dynamics wasn't just talk, it was stark reality, with leadership turning on Carver, employees losing faith, and the company teetering on collapse. Meanwhile, a few blocks away at Novapulse's Silicon Valley headquarters, the mood couldn't have been more different. The sleek, modern building with glass walls and a green roof buzzed with light, as if radiating the energy of victory. Engineers and staff gathered in the main lobby, laughing and clapping as Musk entered with Sarah Bennett. A large screen on the wall replayed the verdict news flashing. Elon Musk defeats Apex Dynamics. Historic win for innovation. Sarah raised a hand for quiet, her voice ringing with excitement. Everyone, we did it. This isn't just Elon's win, it's ours. Our tech's safe now, and we can keep building the future without fear of theft. Applause thundered through the lobby, and Musk stepped forward, raising a hand in thanks with a rare smile. Thank you all, he said, his voice low but clear. Today isn't just about winning a lawsuit, it's about proving that true innovation, born from sweat, tears, and passion, can't be stolen without a cost. Apex thought they could take a shortcut, but they were wrong. Now we'll keep doing what we do best, building things that change the world. The staff cheered, some shouting his name, others clapping until their hands reddened. Sarah stood beside him, gazing at Musk with admiration. Do you think they'll come back? She asked, voice low enough for only him. Musk turned to her, his eyes distant yet steadfast. They might try, he replied, but after today, they'll think twice, and if they don't, we'll be ready. 2 months later, Apex Dynamics officially declared bankruptcy. The 5-year ban had severed their primary revenue source, and mounting debts left them unable to survive. James Carver vanished from the public eye, leaving only a brief resignation letter to the board, admitting defeat without apology. Criminal charges from the U.S. Attorney's Office still loomed, with rumors swirling that Carver faced jail time. Apex's San Francisco headquarters went up for auction, and remaining employees scattered to new jobs, carrying the bitterness of a shattered dream. In stark contrast, Novapulse thrived like never before. Their battery tech, now shielded by the legal victory, set a new industry standard for renewable energy. Major contracts flooded in, and the company's stock soared, cementing Musk and his team as icons of relentless innovation. But the true legacy was the lesson left behind. Real innovation can't be stolen. It must be earned through sweat, intellect, and persistence. The next time a company considers a shortcut, they'll recall Apex Dynamics, and maybe, just maybe, they'll think again. As San Francisco's final lights dimmed into the night, the saga of Elon Musk's courtroom battle with Apex Dynamics didn't fade into mere headlines or fleeting news clips. It became a legend, a tale retold in boardrooms, universities, and coffee shops where innovators gathered. Judge Margaret Holloway's ruling at the San Francisco Federal Courthouse wasn't just a win for Novapulse. It was a bold declaration that in the tech world, where ideas are gold, justice isn't something to be trifled with. 2 months after that fateful day, with Apex Dynamics bankrupt and James Carver erased from public view, America still buzzed about what had happened and what it might mean for the future. At Novapulse's Silicon Valley headquarters, the energy remained electric. The modern building, with its glass walls and green roof, was no longer just a workplace. It stood as a symbol of resilience and triumph. Engineers and staff pressed on with renewed pride, their hands flying over keyboards, their eyes alight as they tested new versions of the battery tech that had propelled them to the top. On the top floor in his sparse office, Elon Musk sat before a large screen, reviewing data from the latest projects. Beside him stood Sarah Bennett, the technical assistant who'd stood by him through the trial's toughest days. She set a coffee mug on the desk, her radiant smile undimmed. "Did you ever think we'd come this far?" Sarah asked, her voice blending curiosity and awe. "I mean, from spotting that missing prototype in Las Vegas to facing down a legal team in court, it's like a dream." Musk turned to her, his gaze distant yet firm, as if seeing beyond her to a grander vision. "I didn't think about how far we'd go," he replied, his tone low but steady. "I thought about doing what's right. Apex stole something that wasn't theirs, and I couldn't let that slide without a fight. Not for me, but for everyone who sweated over this tech. For you, for our team, for what we believe in." Sarah nodded, settling into the chair across from him. "But don't you see, it's bigger than us now. I just read an article. They're calling this the Musk precedent. Other companies are rethinking their policies, tightening security, even filing similar lawsuits. You've changed how the tech world views innovation." Musk gave a rare, genuine smile. "Good," he said. "If they're scared enough to play fair, that's what I wanted. But we're not stopping here, Sarah. We keep pushing, not to prove anything to them, but to prove it to ourselves." Meanwhile, across town in a small Mission District apartment, James Carver lived out his final days in silent solitude. The modest space, with its peeling white walls and rickety wooden table, was all that remained for a man who'd once commanded an empire. The cardboard box from Apex sat unopened in a corner, a painful reminder of his downfall. On the table lay a letter from the U.S. Attorney's Office, announcing a formal criminal probe into his industrial espionage and perjury. A letter he couldn't bear to reread. His phone sat silent, free of calls from shareholders, partners, or even friends. The world he'd once ruled had abandoned him, leaving only emptiness and regret. Carver stood, shuffling to the window to peer down at the lively street below. Cars sped by, laughter rose from the crowd, but it all felt alien to him. "I had everything," he mumbled, his voice rough with exhaustion, "and I lost it, just because I thought I was smarter than him." He recalled that courtroom moment, his own arrogant laugh echoing from Daniel Brooks' recording, a sound he now couldn't stand to remember. He'd thought himself invincible, that Musk could never prove a thing, but he'd been wrong, and the cost was everything he'd ever had. While Carver sank into his personal darkness, the case's story spread beyond San Francisco, reaching tech hubs in Boston, Seattle, and even Europe. Articles, podcasts, and analysis videos dissected every trial detail, from Musk's meticulous prep to Carver's spectacular collapse. A Wall Street Journal headline read, "Elon Musk and the costly lesson of innovation. Don't steal if you can't afford to lose it all." A tech expert on TV remarked, "This wasn't just a legal win, it's a warning shot. Companies will think twice before cutting corners now." Musk set a new bar. And that bar wasn't just talk. Within 3 months of the verdict, at least 5 similar lawsuits popped up in federal courts nationwide, smaller firms accusing larger ones of corporate espionage. Law schools added the Novapulse case to their curricula, hailing it as a textbook example of law safeguarding innovation in the digital age. Even Congress began debating amendments to the Technological Innovation Protection Act, with some lawmakers pushing for harsher penalties for such acts, a move dubbed the Musk effect. But for Musk, all that was background noise. Back at Novapulse, he zeroed in on what he always did best: building. Their battery tech, now fortified by the legal win, became the backbone for new products, from high-performance electric vehicles to energy storage systems for smart cities. In a rare press conference, when asked about the case, Musk kept it brief. "I'm not here to teach anyone a lesson. I'm here to create world-changing things. Apex was an obstacle. We cleared it, and now we move forward." As dawn broke through Novapulse's glass walls, Musk stood at his office window, gazing out at Silicon Valley stirring awake. Sarah entered, a fresh stack of papers in hand. "Ready for today?" she asked, her tone cheerful. Musk nodded, his eyes igniting with that familiar fire, the flame of relentless innovation. "Always ready," he said. "We've got work to do." Somewhere in his small apartment, James Carver stood at his window too, but his eyes saw only darkness. Two men, two fates, one rising from victory, the other sinking in defeat. Yet their story, however divergent, left an indelible mark. Innovation must be earned, not stolen. In the tech world, where ideas reign supreme, justice, as Musk proved, always finds its way. If this tale of brilliance, betrayal, and justice resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more gripping stories that inspire and inform.